I'm Charles Galdi, your host for Vision New England's Church in Action program. This week, we're talking about how churches are using Alpha as a tool for disciple making and evangelism. And we're talking with Lisa Oelerich, who has been at Alpha for more than 18 years and is currently the executive director of Alpha New England. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Oh, good morning, Charles. Thanks so much for having us. Yeah.
Especially as you're fresh back from sabbatical, and I'm sure you've got a list of 75 things. Appreciate you making time for us.
Yeah. Oh, it's a joy.
Thanks. And for folks who don't know you, could you give us maybe a little bit of background about who are you? How'd you wind up at Alpha? Where do you come from? That kind of stuff.
Sure. I did not grow up in a Christian home. By trade, I'm a chef and event planner, and had lots of negative experiences with religious people in church early on in my career. And eventually got curious about faith, and I walked into Grace Chapel back in 2001, and I wound up on an Alpha course there, and came to faith. So, and I never graduated.
Interesting. You never graduated from Alpha?
Yeah.
What would you miss a week or something?
No. So the hope is that when your guests go through the course, that you can put them to work. So Pastor Richard Rhodes recruited me to help on the Alpha team, and then I never left from there.
And I did not know you were trained as a chef. So did you go? Is that professional training or was that learn as you go?
Yes, I went to culinary school in Sarasota, Florida, and I wound up back here to work for Westin Hotels.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
And so when you say you're from here, where originally?
Dartmouth, Mass, so South Coast.
And so, but you sound like someone I need to get to know better, because I do like good food, and you probably like cooking still.
I like to cook for friends. Yes.
Oh, nice.
Absolutely.
Well, what specialty is there? A cuisine that's yours or something else?
I love seafood and Caribbean flair sort of thing.
Oh, wow.
Because I learned in Florida. So.
Okay. Well, neat. Well, tell us a little bit about Alpha. So start with kind of the problem statement, because Alpha is looking to solve something, I think. And so what is Alpha trying to address, solve for, fill gaps in, or something else?
Yeah, well, we would say our mission is to encourage the church in its mission to help individuals explore, encounter, discover faith, and develop a relationship with Jesus. Mm-hmm. So really our mission is accomplished through the church. And we have this tool called Alpha, which is pretty effective. And so, we help church leaders implement it.
Okay. And so I heard in that different words than I used in the beginning, but did I capture it fair as like disciple making and spiritual formation and evangelism? Is that a fair way to think about it? Or am I?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think we would say it's an evangelistic tool. It goes into basic discipleship, but also the team that you recruit to host it, they're being discipled. They're learning how to be on mission. They're learning how to share their faith, radical hospitality, and prayer. All of those things are byproducts as you go.
Now, it was clearly evangelistic for you.
Yes, it was. I thought I had some background in faith, but what I discovered every week as I listened to the talks, that I had questions and I couldn't articulate why I believed what I was taught to believe as a child. But Alpha helped me wrestle with my doubts, my questions, my objections.
What made you want to, how did Grace Chapel, that's going back a few years, but how did they position Alpha that you, as somebody who just kind of showed up at Grace, said, I think I'll go to that?
Yeah, it's really meant to be the front porch porch of your church. And so with Grace Chapel, it was an entry point. And so, I went with a friend. So it's people bringing people, really. People explore because they have a trusted friend who brings them. And that was the case for me. But it's the porch you can belong before you believe anything. And it's a safe space between the church and culture.
Now, looking back, was that friend as interested the way you were, or was that further along at that point and coming to be supportive of you and bring you into it?
They actually dropped out and I kept coming. So I'm not sure how far along she was in her own journey.
Okay. So Alpha's trying to be a kind of front door. It sounds like for people who, if I'm coming to church at that point, it sounds like the typical person, Alpha, is going to be someone who's on something of a faith journey. I've just gotten saved, maybe, or I'm exploring like you were. Is that the typical person who shows up, or is it a big mix?
I think when a church or ministry begins doing Alpha, they will naturally reach the seekers that are in their church or people who have lots of head knowledge, but maybe don't have a personal relationship. So when they start, those are things of guests that you would get on the course. But as you go along, what it helps a faith community do is create a culture of invitation. Because Alpha will die if Christians aren't inviting their non-Christian friends to come. And so I think the challenge for pastors is that they need to mobilize the people in the pews to go and invite friends. Hopefully they have non-Christians. That's the first challenge.
Yeah, for some, yeah.
But it's really meant for skeptics, cynics, it's amazing over the years, just people I've met at an Alpha table, and I get into conversation with them and I think, oh my gosh, they'll never come back. And they're back the next week, wrestling with the content and really the community at the table just loves them and prays for them. And, God is orchestrating things in their lives. So it's just been amazing over the years to see.
And so I want to come to some stories, but I want to poke at a couple of things first, because you paint the contrast of head knowledge versus relationship. Now, my understanding of Alpha is not that you're rejecting knowledge or intellect or anything like that. The difference between knowing about God and really knowing God.
Exactly.
Is that a fair way to think about it?
It definitely is. You can read a book about a particular topic and get knowledge, but it doesn't mean that you actually have practical experience about whatever it is you're reading. And it's the same thing with the Lord. So I think the Alpha content appeals to someone's head and heart and will. Yeah. So the talks are designed to engage all of those parts, the holistic.
Dave Ripper, who I know Dave uses the example of a guy in his church who knows everything about coffee, where it comes from, how it's made, how to pick the beans, how they harvest it, how they bring it to market, all that kind of stuff. But he doesn't drink coffee. So he doesn't actually know when he makes the coffee at church, whether it's any good. And exactly. Dave makes the point. So he knows all about coffee, but he doesn't know coffee.
Exactly. And I think there are lots of people in church today who that applies to. You may even think about them as being overcharged in the sense of having lots of knowledge. But I think the wrestling with the basics of the Christian faith on an Alpha course helps them apply it. How does this make sense for my daily life? And that's the challenge in making disciples.
Mm. And so I want to talk a little bit, do a little bit of deep dive about what people experience and what's happening in Alpha. Can you tell folks where it comes from? Where did Alpha start and how did it get here?
Sure. Alpha started, I think, in the 90s at a small church in central London. It began New Believers course or members course
Okay.
at an Anglican church. And then it was given to Nicky Gumbel, a new vicar there. And he really had a heart to reach people outside the faith. And so he did some tweaking. He was running a course at the same time called Agnostics Anonymous, which what they found as they ran both courses together was people into faith through the alpha content versus the apologetics in the other course. And so he tweaked it a bit to help people have an encounter with Jesus for themselves. There's a time away, which is like a retreat, and just the practicing radical hospitality with prayer. So all of those elements, and it just exploded.
Yeah.
They run still to this day. They run it in lots of different spaces. And at the main church, they average 500 people on their alpha courses. Really, the age range, the average age is about 20 years old. So,
and we always think of you remember Clive Calver, I'm sure. He used to say that New England has a lot more in common with Old England than the rest of the US. And so if it works there, it's bound to work here.
Exactly. We definitely use Clive's line when we talk about it because we are post-Christian. And I think in the UK, Nicky would say that they're so far beyond that. They're actually pre-Christian right now.
Yeah.
Younger people don't have as many hang-ups about religion as prior years. So
yeah,
it's definitely a good tool for our time in our country.
And so describe the program, if you will, a little bit. How long does it last? What happens? What's being done at it?
Yeah, so I would call Alpha process evangelism. Helps take people through a process. There are a series of talks. Every Alpha has three main ingredients: connection, content, and conversation. And so the connection, your team is practicing radical welcome and hospitality. The content are these talks that build on each other. And the conversations in the small groups are designed to allow people to disagree, to push back on some of the things they're hearing, and just wrestle with what they're hearing. So the training of your team is really key because all groups work very counter what you may experience within a church setting like a Bible study or a life group, because we allow people to disagree. We don't teach. The content or the video that they're going to see does all the teaching. Okay. And when you get to the small group, it's time for them to really get to say what they think.
Yeah, that's such an important piece and such a differentiator in what you guys do, because so much of what we hear back is that in churches today, with all the best intents, we teach people what to believe, right?
Yeah, we proclaim.
Yeah.
And this is really counter. Like, we do a lot of work with Barna, and some of the studies that came back told us that people are very open to exploring faith in our culture today, believe it or not. And the two things that they look for when they're ready to explore faith is someone who listens without judgment, and someone who doesn't force conclusions. And so we work really hard training teams to not do that, to work very counter that.
It's a very foreign skill set because our model of evangelism has been proclaim and argue the truth and those things necessarily, but it's not as effective in what I think you and others are seeing, in that I've got to process this because you tell me what to believe and I go, okay, that's what my tribe, we Christians believe. But then when the going gets tough, we suddenly find out I don't actually believe that. I've just been saying I believe it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely true. And when somebody experiences truth for themselves, they will never forget that.
Yeah.
We can't argue someone into the kingdom of God. And in Jesus' ministry, he was asked questions all the time. He actually only asked people 3 questions. So I'm told. I just read a book about this. And he very rarely answered questions. So it's really a safe space, is creating that environment, and praying and allowing God to do what only he can do.
Yeah, I think it's such an important point. Is Jesus did proclaim the gospel very clearly, the Sermon on the Mount example, but it's littered with questions, to your point. And he does ask questions all the time. It seems there's something about me having to verbalize an answer that makes me think more concretely, practically, and then decisively about it, that does something that just hearing you say it and saying, okay, I'll accept that, it just doesn't do it.
Yeah, absolutely. And when a person feels like they belong before they believe, and they can be in process, and they can learn to trust a Christian, like those are just the beginning thresholds of them getting ready to really be open to hearing the gospel and getting over some of their roadblocks. I think over the years, I would say 80% of the people that I've met on Alpha have had a bad experience with the church or someone that is religious. So a lot of your work is just, being their friend until they trust you enough to really share what's on their mind.
And that we were doing an episode of the Church in Action with Sharon yesterday from Gordon College, and she was talking about how, especially the young generation, but it's not limited to them, we don't really trust institutions, and so the church telling me what to believe really doesn't do a lot for them. They want to figure out what they believe, but then once they believe it, they believe it.
Exactly, and that's the exciting part about Gen Z. Coming up, like once they believe it, like they really believe it, we see youth come to faith often, like they believe that God is healing today. And he's active. So I'm very excited about young people coming up the ladder today.
Yeah. And so if I come to an Alpha, so I sign, how many weeks will it be normally?
So if I'm inviting a friend, I would invite them to come once.
Okay.
Check it out and see. I don't pitch it as a, this course, but just for church leaders, you can run it. If you run the whole course, there are 15 sessions. 4 of those happen on a day or weekend away. So you really need, I would say 11 weeks to run the whole thing.
Okay.
But like on college campuses in different places, the calendar doesn't allow for the whole course. So you can definitely make it fit in the calendar with the time that you have.
And so there are some folks then who do it in 8 weeks, for example.
Yes. And we would say that 8 weeks is probably the least that you want to run it, because it's process evangelism. The longer time you have with people, the more effective it's going to be. So when you shorten it, you just have less time for God to work.
And so I'm going to come. It's going to be, I think, typically a weeknight or a night.
Mm-hmm.
And it's going to start with dinner.
Yeah.
Which means Baptists should be all over this, because that's all we go.
And our Catholic friends, they have the best crew, kitchen crews that do lots of amazing cooking. Our Anglicans serve wine. It's great. It's great.
But we Baptists can't come to the Anglican.
No.
And so we're going to have dinner, and then we're going to watch a video.
Yep.
And then to your point, we're going to have some time to unpack it together, to process it together. What are some of the topics we're going to watch in the videos? What's some of the teaching about?
So the first three talks really present the gospel message. So is there more to life than this? Who is Jesus? Gives you practical evidence that he existed. Three is, why did Jesus die? The problem of sin is presented. And then it moves on to like, how can I be sure of my faith? Why should I read the Bible? How do I? And then it leads into a time away with your guest where they learn all about the Holy Spirit. Who is he? What does he do? How can I receive Jesus and be filled with the Holy Spirit? So you can see like they progress.
Yeah. So it's clearly, so I want to ask you about what you see happening, what the outcomes you experience are. Clearly in your own life, it was evangelistic, and you guys say, maybe give us a story or two, if you would, about what you've seen happening with churches who do Alpha.
Yeah, it really has the effect of revitalization and an evangelistic culture. That culture of invitation ends up being created. And there's so much happening across New England right now. There's city movements happening around, including Alpha, I will say. In Boston specifically, we had a group of 38 churches and ministries come together to launch Alpha together, to train together, and they did their time away together. And we just saw incredible fruit from that. And it's repeated. We're going to be doing it for the third time this fall. But we just heard stories like on Miracle Mile. We saw people move forward in their faith and come to faith. Symphony Church, Awaken City Church with new immigrants, refugees that they work with. We hear stories all the time of either people coming to faith or people still in process who start going to their faith community. It's just really exciting. This year, we're seeing the same thing happen in Providence, Rhode Island. There's a church there that has been doing Alpha in a little pub in the middle of Providence called Sin Cafe. So they do Alpha there. They got an inroad, and there are all these different groups that meet in this cafe. And on Thursday night, there's a group of witches that gather there. So the Alpha team met up with these folk and invited some of them to come on the Alpha they were doing there. And they had a witch come to faith.
Wow.
That's Sin Cafe. And now she is actually on the team who's doing Alpha right now there. So
how cool is that?
It's just crazy.
And you're reminding me of a point, and I forget it was Barna or somebody else who made the point that people are very open to these faith conversations, but they don't want them in a church. Right?
That's right.
They're willing to have them in other places because they don't trust churches.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's a great church in Portland, Maine, who is doing Alpha in a pub. And at this time, their childcare happens across the street at the Children's Museum.
Huh. Oh, cool.
Well, it's just, they're doing really cool things there.
And
Rise Church. So there's a great church in Milford, Connecticut, Kingdom. And they've just exploded. They ran through their church, and now they're running it on 2 college campuses with their youth, in prison, at the church, online. So it's just multiplying because people who go through Alpha and come to faith, or their faith comes alive, they're ready to be on mission. And so they immediately want to come back and serve and invite friends. At Crossway, we had amazing, when we launched it there, Crossway Christian, a young girl who was a cheerleading coach. She came to faith and like was on fire. And we asked her to come back and serve on our next Alpha. And she invited like 20 friends who were not Christians to come. And so like that's your hope, that that process continue. People bringing people and multiplying.
I heard two things in what you were saying that I think are important. One is that, hey, look, it's having an evangelistic impact for sure. People are getting saved. People are doubling down on their faith. People are taking God, searching out God and having a serious relationship with him. It changes the culture of your church too.
It definitely does. So, I mean, the believers are being discipled to be on mission, not across the ocean, right here in New England, in the places where they live. That's on your front porch where people can just come and explore.
Amen. Lisa, thank you so much for taking time to be with us today. But thank you for your ministry. As you said, so many years doing this. But boy, there is great fruit happening. And I'm just so grateful for what you're doing in a space where it's so needed. So thanks so much.
Great. Oh, thank you guys. We enjoy being a part of the Vision New England Network and all the work that you all do. So bless you.
Thanks very much. God bless you. Talk to you soon. To support this program and accelerate evangelism, go to visionnewengland.org and click on donate or click member to become a partner with us. This program is supported by the Palau Association, who are dedicated to proclaiming the good news, uniting the church, and impacting cities worldwide.
At Leadership Transformations, we believe that when you have the right resources to help you slow down and experience a deep and refreshing connection to God, you can become the discerning leader you know you are created to be. Friends, Steve Macchia here, and I have a free gift for your soul. It's called Pathways. Pathways is our weekly email aimed at offering you soul-nourishing content for the journey. It contains readings, prayers, spiritual practices, a link to the Discerning Leader podcast, as well as information about all of our upcoming soul care retreats, workshops, and online offerings. So head on over to leadershiptransformations.org today and sign up for this free resource. It will help you slow down and be more. God bless you, friends.